So I thought maybe I'd do something slightly different here for this video. I want to go over this new transmitter I got. This is the Futaba FF3 3UCP. This is actually a vintage stick radio. And the reason I got this, I was actually inspired by a friend of mine who has a car that he runs in the Silver Can class at RCHR. And that's kind of a vintagey sort of class, although it doesn't have to be vintage cars that you run. And so he's running an old Futaba Magnum PCM pistol grip radio. I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. So what if I found a stick version of that radio that I could run with my Silver Can cars? Of course, I might not ever get to race this class, but at least to run the cars during open practice. So I knew that Futaba had an advanced stick radio back in the, I guess, mid to late 90s. And that was this guy here, the FF3. So this radio is actually quite similar to modern stick radios or pistol grip radios. In my case, I use a Sanwa Exis Plus. That's my main radio that I use. This has similar features, endpoint, exponential adjustment, dual rate, multiple model memory. It has all the things that you would really need. The only thing is that it's set up for PCM. But you can buy a module that will convert it to spread spectrum. So this is made by a company called Corona, and they make spread spectrum modules for some older radios. So this just plugs right in the back, and then the receivers that they have for that are like this. It's kind of a different design. They have two antennas, which is kind of funky, and then the ports where you plug in all like your servo, your speed control, it comes in on the side. It doesn't come in from the top. Very small, very low profile, very light. So that's kind of neat. And the way you bind it is kind of straightforward. You just, turn the bind button, or you press the bind button here. And while you're holding that, you turn the transmitter on. And then you turn this on while holding the bind button on the back. And then this will blink twice. Turn everything off. Then you turn the receiver on first. And then you turn the transmitter on, and you're all set. So that's... And it seems to work fine. Obviously this stuff's brand new to me, so we'll see if I run into any issues down the line. But for the radio itself, what I like about it, I kind of like the way it looks. Even though it's sort of boxy, it has a nice, almost jewelry-like look to it, for lack of a better term. And if I turn it on here, you can cycle through the menu. So the main menu, you have your trim settings. Up here it says dual rate and ATL. ATL is the throttle limit, which it's kind of strange the way they set this up. ATL allows you to adjust essentially the brake endpoint, but then ATV, that's adjustable travel volume, that allows you to set both high and low endpoints for all your channels. So throttle, steering, everything. So that makes me think ATL is kind of pointless if I can just do the same thing with ATV. I'm sure there's a use for it in other applications, maybe for boats or planes or something. And by the way, you do have some quick access buttons. So over here, your steering dual rate, you can adjust it right here rather than cycling through the menus. Over here is your steering trim. And on the right here is your throttle trim. And this is your ATL. I wish this were throttle like high and low endpoint rather than ATL, but whatever. So then from here, there's a whole bunch of menus for like model number, ATV, sub trim, expo, dual rate, all the things you would normally want to use. There's also a lot of settings for servo mixing, which is something you do with, I guess, funkier cars. There's also a four-wheel steering feature. So if you have something like a clodbuster and you need servos to turn in the opposite direction, this can do that for you. You hit both mode buttons and it goes back to the main menu. The only things I don't like about this are it's only a 6 model memory, although for its time that was actually a pretty good number. But when you go to the model menu, you can do it by hitting second and then model. It takes you a model number. And then if I use the cursor to go left to right, I can select the model number. All you have is number 1, number 2, number 3, and so forth. I can't actually name the model number. I can't give it a name like YZ10 or RB5 or Dynastorm, right? It's just a model number. So you need to write down on a piece of paper somewhere what each model number corresponds to, and maybe like you know, tape it to the back or tape it under the battery cover or something, so you know what goes where. That's one issue. The other issue with this is with the, hold on a second. There we go. With the dual rate and the endpoints, so that would be ATV, you cannot go above 100%, right? I can bring it down, but I can't go up above 100%. On modern radios, you can adjust your endpoints to go above 100% in either direction, because sometimes you might have a situation where I actually have it on this right now, where if I go full left with 100% left endpoint, it goes full left. And if I go full right, it doesn't quite go all the way. So if I can do an extra 10% or so on the servo to make the servo move a bit more, I can get the correct full right-hand steering lock. But because this won't allow me to do that, I have to adjust that mechanically. So in this case, I'd have to use something like a taller servo horn, which does affect the geometry, because with this servo horn where it is, I have a nice level steering linkage here, which is really good for off-center response, left and right. If I have to go to a taller horn, I mean, you won't really notice it too much, but it does kind of change the symmetry a little bit of how the steering behaves left and right. But you have to do some things mechanically to supplement what the radio won't allow you to do. On the Sanwa Exis, if I want to, I can go to 110%, 120%, whatever, just to make sure I'm getting the right throw in both directions. Can't do it here. Other than that, it has everything, and it's kind of fun to sort of learn the radio and kind of play around with it to see how this works compared to my Exis. Some of the features are named differently, like ATV on the Exis, that's called EPA, endpoint adjust, for example. But yeah, very cool radio. I do plan to set this up for all of my Silvercan cars, which will allow me to also offload models from my Sanwa Exis, because that has a 30 model memory, but it's already filled up. And anytime I add a new car, I have to take something off of that radio. So this will allow me to offload up to 6 models off of that radio, which is great for when I want to add like my Losi XX or my X-Factory X5 or something else to that radio. So yeah, I just thought I'd show you guys this. Pretty neat. I did manage to actually get 2 of these. A friend of mine sold me one of his new in box. That's going to be like my backup radio. This one is used, but it's in perfectly good condition. I just cleaned it up a little bit. And yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.